In 1815, one family made more money in a single day than most nations made in a year. They didn't fire a single bullet. They didn't command a single soldier. They simply knew something no one else knew, and they used it. By the time the world caught up, it was already too late. Today, their name is whispered in the halls of every central bank on Earth. Their bloodline has financed wars, built empires, collapsed economies, and men rebuilt them for profit. They are the Rothschilds. And what I'm about to tell you is not theory, it's not rumor, it's history. But here's what's strange. Most of this history has been quietly removed from your textbooks. Stay until the end, because the last 3 minutes of this video will change the way you look at money forever. Frankfurt, Germany, 1744. In one of the most restricted ghettos in Europe, a street so narrow that two people could barely walk side by side, a boy named Mayer Amschel Rothschild was born. His world was a cage. Jews in Frankfurt were locked inside the ghetto gates every night. They couldn't own land, couldn't farm, couldn't join trade guilds. There was a quota on how many Jewish families could even exist. On Sundays, they weren't allowed to leave at all. So, what could they do? They could lend money. Because the church had declared charging interest a sin, Christians wouldn't do it. So the dirty work, the work no one wanted, was handed to the people no one wanted. Remember that, because the very thing designed to trap them became the foundation of the greatest financial dynasty in human history. Young Mayer lost both parents to smallpox by the time he was 12. He was sent to work at a banking firm in Hanover. And this is where something clicked inside him. He didn't just learn money, he learned people. He noticed that wealthy aristocrats collected rare coins, so he went back to Frankfurt, opened a small shop, and started selling antique coins to the rich and powerful. But the coins weren't really the product. Access was the product. One client in particular would change everything. Prince William of Hesse-Kassel, one of the wealthiest royals in Europe. Prince William had a dark business. He rented out his own soldiers, entire armies, to foreign powers for profit. The money was enormous, and he needed someone to manage it. He chose Mayer, and that was the first domino. But what Mayer did next, with his 5 sons, is where this story goes from impressive to unbelievable. Mayer Rothschild had a plan that no banker in history had ever attempted. He had 5 sons, Amschel, Salomon, Nathan, Kalman, and Jacob, and he sent each one to a different European capital. Amschel stayed in Frankfurt, Salomon went to Vienna, Nathan, the most aggressive, went to London, Kalman went to Naples, and Jacob, later known as James, went to Paris. 5 brothers, 5 financial capitals, 1 unified family network. Think about what this meant. In the early 1800s, there was no internet, no telephone, no telegraph for decades. Information traveled at the speed of a horse. But the Rothschilds built their own private courier system, carrier pigeons, fast ships, dedicated riders who crossed borders with coded messages hidden in compartments. They created the fastest communication network in the world, faster than any government, faster than any military. And in a world where information was power, they had more power than kings. Mayer reportedly told his sons, and this quote has been passed down through history, "If you brothers stick together, no force on earth can touch you." Now, I need to tell you about Nathan, the one who went to London. Because Nathan Rothschild didn't just build a bank, he pulled off what might be the most audacious financial play in recorded history. And it happened on a single day, June 20th, 1815. June 18th, 1815, the fields of Waterloo, Belgium. Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who had conquered most of Europe, was making his final stand against the British Duke of Wellington. The entire continent held its breath, because the outcome of this single battle would reshape Europe. If Napoleon won, French dominance. British markets would collapse. If Wellington won, stability. British markets would soar. Every investor, every trader, every government was desperate for one thing: who won? Nathan Rothschild knew first. His private courier network, a system of agents, riders, and boats positioned across the English Channel, delivered the news to him in London a full 24 to 48 hours before the British government officially received it. Let that sink in. He knew the outcome of the most important battle in modern European history before the Prime Minister of England did. Now, what happened next has been told in different versions. Some historians debate the details, but here's what multiple accounts from the era describe. Nathan walked onto the floor of the London Stock Exchange. He stood in his usual spot, a pillar that would later be called the Rothschild pillar. And he started selling. He sold British government bonds aggressively. The other traders watched. They knew Nathan had the best intelligence network in Europe. If he was selling, that must mean Wellington lost, Napoleon won, Britain was finished. Panic spread like wildfire. Everyone started selling. Bond prices crashed. The market plummeted into free fall. And then, at the bottom of the crash, Nathan's agents quietly stepped in and bought everything. When the official news finally arrived that Wellington had won, the markets exploded upward. The bonds Nathan had just bought for pennies were now worth a fortune. In a matter of hours, Nathan Rothschild had multiplied his wealth to a degree that is still debated, but even conservative estimates say it was one of the greatest single-day trades in history. Some historians say this single event made the Rothschilds the wealthiest family in the world. Others say they already were. Either way, by the 1820s, the Rothschilds weren't just bankers, they were the bankers, the ones who lent to nations. And that brings us to a question most people never think to ask.
Here's something they don't teach you in school. Throughout the 1800s, almost every major European government borrowed money from the Rothschilds. Britain, France, Austria, Prussia, the Vatican, Brazil, multiple American ventures. They financed both sides of wars, not always directly, but through the web of bonds and lending that their network controlled. Think about the position that puts you in. If both sides of a war owe you money, you don't care who wins, you profit either way. And the winner still has to pay you back, with interest. The Rothschilds funded the construction of railways across Europe, the technology that connected the modern world. They financed the Suez Canal, one of the most strategic waterways on the planet. In 1875, when the Egyptian government was going bankrupt and needed to sell its shares in the Suez Canal, the British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli needed money fast, faster than Parliament could approve. He went to Lionel Rothschild. Lionel asked how much. Disraeli said £4 million, an astronomical sum at the time. According to the famous account, Lionel was eating grapes. He paused, spit out a seed, and said, "You shall have it." No committee, no board meeting, no vote. One man, one family, casually wrote a check that gave the British Empire control of the most important shipping route in the world. By the mid-1800s, the Rothschilds were widely considered the wealthiest family in recorded history. Some modern estimates, adjusted for inflation, place Mayer Amschel Rothschild's dynasty at a peak net worth that dwarfed any individual alive. They had more money than some countries' entire GDP. Their homes were palaces. Kings came to them for dinner. A famous joke spread through European courts. The kings of Europe say, the Rothschilds are our equals. The Rothschilds say, the kings of Europe are our equals. But here's where the story takes a turn that most people miss entirely. Because wealth like this doesn't just attract admiration, it attracts something far more dangerous.
The Rothschilds became the most targeted family in history. Because of their visibility, their religion, and their wealth, they became the center of every financial fear and prejudice that existed. During the 19th century, they were blamed for wars they didn't start, crashes they didn't cause, conspiracies they had nothing to do with. The propaganda against them was vicious, and it had real consequences. Much of the anti-Semitic imagery that would later fuel the darkest chapter of the 20th century was originally built around caricatures of the Rothschilds. And here's the part that genuinely haunts. When the Nazis rose to power, the Rothschilds, despite their immense wealth, were not immune. Their Austrian palace was seized, family members were captured and held for ransom. The French branch had their art, one of the greatest private collections in the world, looted, thousands of pieces stolen. The family that had financed empires was for a moment powerless against the machinery of genocide. They survived, they rebuilt, but the world had changed. The age of family banking dynasties was fading. Central banks, institutional finance, and government regulation began to dominate. The Rothschilds adapted. They always adapted, but they would never again hold the singular dominance they once had. Or would they? Today, the Rothschild family still operates. Rothschild & Co. was a major global financial advisory firm. They advise on some of the biggest mergers and acquisitions on the planet. They own legendary vineyards, massive estates, art collections that museums beg to borrow from. But their fortune has been divided across hundreds of descendants over 7 generations. No single Rothschild today appears on the Forbes billionaire list, which either means the wealth has been diluted, or it means it's been structured in ways that don't show up on any list. Private trusts, family holding companies, entities registered in places where disclosure isn't required. The truth is, no one outside the family truly knows the full extent of the Rothschild fortune, and the family prefers it that way.
A boy from a locked ghetto built a financial empire that shaped the modern world. His descendants financed railways, canals, wars, and nations. They were celebrated, envied, hunted, and survived. And the lesson, the real lesson, isn't about conspiracy. It's simpler and more powerful than that. Information moves faster than armies, and the person who controls the flow of information controls everything. The Rothschilds understood that in 1815. Social media companies understand it now. The question is, do you?